Senator Lujan, who is the ranking, the majority chairman of the subcommittee that oversees all of the telecommunications and broadband technology and internet for the Senate Commerce Committee. Senator Lujan was elected to Congress in 2008, just as I was retiring. So as I exited, he entered. Before that, and this is very important because as we go into the next round of the implementation of the infrastructure bill, he was on the Public Service Commission in New Mexico, where he looked at how do you regulate the utilities and the broadband sector back home in New Mexico. He was elected to the Senate in 2020. He immediately took over leadership positions because of his recognized expertise, experience, and knowledge in this area. I've gotten to go out to Santa Fe with Senator Lujan, see his home state. It is beautiful. The good thing about Senator Lujan is, one, he's respected across the aisle, across the country. He is a fierce fighter for his home state. The wildfires that really damaged so much of New Mexico last year, he was a leader to make sure that New Mexico was taken care of at the end of the year, and that those areas that were damaged could be rebuilt and recovered. It's a testament and a tribute to his character of how he fights fiercely for things back home and is respected here in Washington as a leader in the issues that matter most to our membership in INCOMPAS. He's a true friend of competition, and so we'd love to have Senator Lujan come up and have a conversation. You see here? All right. So I'll sit on the right, I guess. Before we start, I see it's Mignon Clyburn here. Yeah, another good friend of yours. She has been a long champion of competition, both in her public service and now in her private life. She and I co-chair something called the Broadland Campaign, and we've been working the last 2.5 years in the legislative stage, then in the NOFA, the Commerce Department stage, of giving guidance to the states of how to hopefully spend the money in the right way in the right places. But she is a great friend, and I just wanted to recognize her. And I know that you and she have worked together over many, many years.
For better or for worse, she's probably the reason that I'm in Congress. When she was on the Public Utility Commission, she oversaw something at the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissions. It's easier to say NARUC, I think.
Yes.
And over there, she oversaw the group of commissioners that had federal responsibility to work with Congress. Yeah. And so I said, well, I want to help with that. Yeah. And so I got to know the chairwoman, and she came and introduced me to another representative by the name of Mr. Clyburn. And I got to know him, and she said, he might run for Congress. I looked at me and I said, I don't know about that. And Jim was one of the first folks to come out to New Mexico to open up conversations. But really, it was a credit to the good work of the chairwoman. And that's just, as you know, Chip, that's just the way she is. She supports people. She's thoughtful. She's always prepared. But I'm lucky to call her a friend.
Yes. Well, we both are, and INCOMPAS and all of our member companies, for both of y'all, we're very grateful. Last night, we had a chance to just to have a board meeting. One of the things that we talked about in our board meeting was the very important role of having a full commission, having 5 commissioners who can settle disputes, whether it's on mapping or broadband or big issues. Gigi Sohn is before the committee. Give our members and the audience an update on where her confirmation stands and any new encouraging signs of where her nomination stands and the possibility of her confirmation and the full commission being in the near future.
Right. Well, look, I agree that we need 5 commissioners, whether it's a Democratic majority or a Republican majority, depending on who the president is. That body works best with 5 commissioners. to be able to have the votes necessary to move whatever the agenda is. While sometimes I may have agreed with it in the past or disagreed with it, that's the way that that body functions best. And now with potential discrimination rules or areas where there's still some conversations taking place on labeling or mapping or even in privacy. I mean, the commission recently had to send a case to the media bureau, first time they've ever done it this way without a commission vote. And absence what everyone thinks about the merits of what's before the commission, this is the first time it's happened. That's precedent setting. I can't imagine that would have occurred if there were 5. So that's why I want to see a full 5-person commission. Now, I don't know if I have anything you would add to everybody. It's been like 320 days now since Gigi was nominated. We're going on, I don't know how many, Jeff, we talked about this yesterday, like 700 and some odd days. Well, since Joe Biden became president of the United States at the beginning of the calendar year. And we had the 3rd hearing, which is unusual, especially for an FCC nominee before the Commerce Committee. And I mean, my thoughts there is that Republicans made a mistake having another hearing. And the reason is it gave a chance for Gigi to clear up some of what was coming from my Republican colleagues. So I don't know that that was a good move on their part, at least those that oppose her. I hope that there's a vote soon to get to the floor and get some floor time here. I just don't know what the process is. I mean, I'm not a freshman any longer, but I'm pretty close. I guess I'm in my first term still. So not the first 2 years of a freshman term. But it's been over 300 days. And votes need to be counted and time needs to be spent. This is an area that I'll become more and more public. I was vocal early on with when Commissioner Rosenworcel had not yet been put forth as a potential chair. And then when we were still waiting on a nomination for Gigi, I was being vocal and about getting a 5th person nominated. Commissioner Starks, who I think he'll be here a little bit later, he's up at the end of this year. So, Jeff reminded me yesterday, with the track record that Congress has, it takes 16 months to confirm someone. We're almost out of time for Jeff for Commissioner Sparks. That needs to happen now. Yeah. And I've made that clear to folks that I've been talking to, and I'm exploring ways now that I've been fortunate to have that gavel on the subcommittee to make sure that I'm raising this up as an important issue. So yeah. I'm hopeful. So keep praying. Yeah. And God willing, we'll get a 5th FCC commissioner here soon.
Well, this was a historic and transformational period for the broadband industry. Deploying the new advanced networks that will drive the future applications, the economy, our competitiveness with China, and to be able to achieve all the policy objectives, a full commission is needed. We're very supportive of Gigi and would give any support that we can to help achieve a full commission. And as a Republican, I hate to see, we've always had bipartisanship on broadband and telecommunications for the most part. There are some exceptions, and the nomination process, I can never remember a nomination process like this. Yeah, for the FCC. Yeah. So
I'm hopeful, sir. I mean, anything that we can do that can learn from you all as well, as we navigate what I hope is the very end of getting to a 5th FCC commissioner and then renominating Mr. Sparks. So look forward to working with you all on that.
Well, as chair of the subcommittee on communications, media, and broadband, tell us all your priorities for the Congress and anything that we can do to be supportive.
Well, the big priority is what you just laid out, Chip, which is a lot of oversight into making sure this thing gets built. I still want to be convinced that there's enough investment to connect 100% of America and to also support the affordability side of this. They both run hand in hand. 90 million people didn't have connectivity, not because they didn't have a connection, but because they couldn't afford it. That'll take up a lot of time and responsibility. We're in the midst of spectrum reauthorization. Yeah. we'll see what magic happens by Friday, Thursday.
Yes.
Thursday's the 9th.
Are you close?
I think that we were close at the end of the calendar year. I don't think it was that far when it should have been included in the omnibus. The House passed a bill, as you know, that said give us till May. I think this morning a couple of our colleagues in the Senate introduced a bill that said give us till the end of the calendar year. One of those needs to be acted on. I'm very worried what this would mean going into close of day tomorrow or into the weekend at least. It was clear at the end of the calendar year that this was important enough, at the very least, to include a patch, not to let it expire, but say let's give us until March. That was a lot of time. And to your point about are we close? Yes, I think we're close. And between the end of the calendar year and March should have been enough time. No, that's where again, new in the Senate, new on the committee. That's my perspective. This should not be hard. So I'm hopeful. Discrimination as well. I've been looking at the rulemaking at the FCC, and to all of you that submit comment, I apologize. I'm one of those weird folks that we look at comments filed to the FCC to just follow proceedings, depending on what's going to happen legislatively and whatnot. So we're watching that one closely. We're watching the conversations taking place on labeling as well, and then privacy is getting a lot more attention. I thought there'd be something done significantly in the area of social media with children. At the end of last year, there was a lot of momentum, but it seems that there's been support that has come back. So those are a couple areas I think that will get more support, but that I'll be concentrating on in the committee as well.
One of the areas of oversight will be the role of the NTIA and then the state broadband offices. And I know that the committee is going to be watching closely and trying to give the appropriate oversight. Any thoughts or guidance or principles between the NTIA and the state broadband offices? I believe the allocation to the states will be by the end of June of the first tranche of major funding. Anything that you'd like to comment on the NTIA and state broadband offices?
I mean, just look, early on, I think that states that were ready, they're going to get attention. They're going to do well with NTIA and with roles with the FCC as well. To me, it's going to be the mid and the end, right? Because we'll get an idea after the first tranche and after first discussions, which states still need a little more help.
Yeah.
And that's where all of the technical support from the Department of Commerce, who's here from Commerce?
So tonight, later on this afternoon, I think.
Yeah. Well, I was just trying to find them. I was
Yes.
looking in the eye. From a commerce perspective, there's technical support that's supposed to be there helping all the states. I think that helps in many areas.
Yeah.
Some of them, as you know, are in state. A lot of them are working from here. Well, we live in this new world where, teleworking works. There's something about being on the ground and traveling into communities, and then you understanding where your mobile phone doesn't work, where communities don't have connectivity, where fire chiefs or police chiefs, they don't have connectivity in emergencies, situations, things of that nature. So that's where I'm going to be watching closely. And then from an FCC perspective, while NTIA came up with some maps that were pretty good, we've since discovered that there's some holes that need to be addressed. And in my state, there were entire communities, Native American communities, that were just left out. And we're hearing challenges in states like Nevada, for example. So that's where a lot of this is going to come, whether it's FCC, NTIA. Do NTIA maps share something with us that the FCCs don't? But the technical support is going to matter most. And I'm hoping it'll always improve.
Well, our board is having dinner with Alan Davidson tonight. Is there anything that you want us to tell him from your perspective?
I'll give you a list. Look, it's just a matter of encouraging the administrator to invest this money, do it as timely as possible, provide support to the states that may not be where they need to be. And as the Secretary of Commerce and the administrator told me, that there's enough funds here. If not, they will find the funds to connect 100% of the country. And I'm one of the folks that will hold them accountable to those words and to that commitment.
And to that end, one of the major barriers are the potential to have an undermining of the objectives of Congress in connecting every American is a lot of times the struggles that our companies face in deploying networks and facing delays in the permitting.
Mm.
How do you streamline the permitting? How do you have guaranteed rights of access? How do you cross the railroad? How do you attach to the pole? How do you have the best practices on that? And you've been a big champion on streamlining on the permitting on federal lands. Anything that you'd like to communicate to our community?
Is keep letting us know where you're running into challenges as you're going through this process. If you're running into a barrier with getting something approved, whether you're digging or if there's utilities out there that are being reluctant to let you co-locate with them, let your representatives and senators know. I'd be interested in learning about that. Senator Barrasso and I, Republican from Wyoming, he led an effort that I joined with him, bringing attention to concerns that we had specific to broadband deployment connectivity in these spaces. In the Indian Affairs Committee, I've been raising this issue from a permitting concern. And the example that I use, Chip, is in New Mexico. I'm proud to represent part of the Navajo Nation, which, as you know, is in 3 different states. There was a bridge and a road that got washed out with a big rainstorm back in like 2001 or 2002. Federal declaration was done. FEMA gave them the money. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, this is a bridge on Native American land. The Bureau of Indian Affairs would not approve the easement. Money was lost. We were able to get the money back. Then it was one of my favorite meetings. It was a full day meeting. We went to visit local county commissioners, BIA administrators, it was a room full of people. And it was all the folks that were pointing fingers at each other saying, it's not my job, it's their job. So for the first 4 hours, everyone vented. And then for the next 4 hours, we said, okay, this needs to be done. Who has jurisdiction responsibility? A few hands would go up. Which of you are taking responsibility? 1 or 2 hands would stay up. By what date are you committed to get this done? And then they throw out a date and we go, okay, sign here. And then it took a few more years, but it got done. That's going to happen to every project in indigenous communities if we don't fix this, to your point. So specific to Native American lands, federal lands, government-owned state or local lands, and private. So I've been leaning in the area of co-locating on poles. Whatever it is, we have to keep pushing, and that's why I suggest if you're having challenges or problems, please air them and let us know, because we may be able to take care of some of this in larger tranches, but some of this is going to be like casework. It's going to be one community at a time, one challenge at a time, where you have to reach out to whoever is causing the challenge and then try to find amends. So we need to get this fixed, and I'm very supportive of this. I was one of the few folks that intervened in a rulemaking. I want to say this one was at FERC, but it was on distribution power location versus larger segments with transmission. And I sided with some tribes versus others, but it was changing CFR to improve permitting and location. And last thing on this, I'm of the belief that if you dug a hole and you put something in it, well, then everything to that point's been looked at. So if you're going to co-locate in there, maybe you share expenses with whoever created it first, but you should be able to drop in there without having to go through the entire process. And same thing vertically. If someone already went through the process, you should be able to hang something without having to go through the entire process. Now, I'm a smaller voice, if you will. There's not very many of us that share that, but to me that makes sense.
Well, INCOMPAS has long been a champion on policies, just like what you're talking about. The dig once, one touch, make ready. So if everybody can co-locate on a pole at the same time, if you're trenching, get all the conduit and all the broadband as well as the other infrastructure in place. And we've had historic levels, not only on broadband funding, but on infrastructure funding. And these efforts need to be coordinated so that we can achieve the objective in the fastest manner at the lowest cost so that broadband is affordable, which is a key objective. Before I move on to permitting, I know the farm bill, you're on the ag committee and on the commerce committee. And we want to work closely. Later today, we're going to have a panel on precision agriculture, and Deb Fisher from the committee and Chairman Thompson from the House. But how do we have, the opportunity, whether it's on Forest Service lands in the ag bill, other ways that we can use the farm bill to advance, whether it's affordability or USF, the key issues that really go to rural America and to a state like New Mexico. So we want to work closely with you as you go into the farm bill. What provisions can help broadband, both in the deployment and the streamlining on Forest Service lands? And then are there some other opportunities that we may achieve other objectives? So we look forward to working on both committees with you.
Well, first, you're bringing in two leaders on the subject with Senator Fisher and Chair Thompson as well. So congratulations on that. They'll both be instrumental in helping to make that happen. As far as having more support for precision farming, I live on a small farm, but I don't have nearly enough land to count on precision farming. Senator Tester, he jokes with me when I told him I farm too, and I told him how many acres we farm. He just walked away. So this is going to make a difference, because even someone that has a small parcel like my family does, if you can automate irrigation structures or drip, or you can do some intriguing things, it's going to help increase the production and things of that nature to folks like Senator Tester and others who are on large columbines. And what that means for us, it'd be the Navajo Nation. They have the largest production in New Mexico, and they do precision, but they benefit from modernization. So whether it's in that particular area, or you're looking at permitting within the Forest Service, I mean, those are two great places to start. And if there's strengthening that's needed for schools, or as we were chatting a little bit earlier about the connectivity fund, I mean, that they're all connected. It's just a matter of having the votes necessary to get this stuff done. But again, you're bringing two important leaders on the subject that will be influential and will determine potentially the outcome of how this thing leans.
Yeah.
So I'm all ears on this, and coming from a rural state where, a lot of my colleagues, they joke with me about how many people live in New Mexico versus some of their big cities. Well, I tell them, you all keep coming. So, New Mexico's not that bad. You're all hooked on it as well. But I understand what it is to not only live in a rural community, but to represent a rural state.
And just, to add on to the affordable connectivity program, another critical component of the infrastructure funding. But what we're seeing with our member companies who are deploying and who want to go into lower income communities, disadvantaged communities, that makes the economics work. And so we want to find a solution with you of how do you sustain that. It was a critical component of the pandemic related efforts, but how do you sustain it over the long term? And how does it complement the funding that's going into deployment from those communities that really need the assistance to connect?
Well, this is another area that I believe that partnerships and modernization is going to matter. All the conversations in the past with some colleagues that support USF like me and others that really didn't want to see it function the way that it's functioning. We were talking about how it's funded with long distance calling. Not very many people are making long distance calls from a landline these days. So that's a diminishing revenue stream as well. And we saw the support of this bipartisanly. So I think that there's something that can come together. There's some colleagues that are talking about potential solutions. SEC commissioners have written editorials talking about this. Former Commissioner Michael Riley wrote an editorial talking about the importance of getting this done. So there's voices on all sides talking about the importance of this. And this is one of those moments where we could address a lot and create a much stronger program, whether it's USF or call something else, but that actually works to get all of this done across the country. So I'm part of a few working, I don't know what we call them, Jeff, conversations, working groups, whatever you want to call them, to help get this done. And again, I'd be all ears here to see how your thoughts and ideas can make this happen and encourage more members to be a part of this solution.
Yeah. One final thing is we're running out of time. you wrote a letter to the FCC urging the commission that if the engineering, if the technical analysis shows that you can have both satellite use and 5G or fixed wireless or shared flexible uses, to move forward on the 12 gigahertz proceeding pending at the FCC. The FCC has also brought in the 12.7 to 13.2. So we have 1,000 megahertz of mid-band spectrum that could be brought into use, help us not only close the digital divide, but compete against China in the race to 5G. Any thoughts on that proceeding or other just major spectrum initiatives that we need to have a pipeline ready to go as soon as we can?
Well, again, where a five-person commission would help in helping to get through some of these challenges as well. And look, I can speak to this maybe from the perspective of the 3 gigahertz. So myself and Senator Thune, we came together to bring attention to that band last year, and I thought there was a chance that we'd get it. It felt like it was coming together, but nonetheless, some objections were raised. Since that time, it's my understanding that the Department of Defense and the Department of Commerce, they're on the same side here. So some of the objections that were raised, I think they've been addressed. And how can that be extrapolated to look at 12 gigahertz as well? So that way we're in a better position to have more opportunity and capability to connect the country. I think that's how we should be looking at this as well. And look, we want to preserve what's needed to keep us safe, no doubt. Technological advances have taught us a lot. And I think it's through that lens that we need to embrace. I think as Commissioner, as Chairwoman Rosenworcel has said, follow the science on this. And I support that. But we need to bring this to conclusion. And especially when competing interests, to me at least, seem like they're on the same page to be able to take the next step. We should do that. So this will be critically important, and I hope it's done soon.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for coming to join us. I think we're going to be on the Hill tomorrow. Hopefully, as we come to the Hill, make our case on the priorities that we just discussed. But this is just the beginning of the conversation. We want to work with you through this Congress. We appreciate your leadership, your friendship. I look forward to seeing you in Santa Fe again this year.
You're always welcome. You all come down to Santa Fe, come to New Mexico. Love to show you around. But
it's a beautiful place.
It's not bad. It's all right. You come on down. We'll show you around. But to all of you, truly, just thanks for what you committed your lives to and what you're doing in communities, whether you're going before the local commissions or before local governments to get the necessary approvals to keep people connected and working to strengthen the tools that people have. Just thank you for that, because we're on the same page when it comes to this stuff. And as I've been reminded by several friends, this is not once in a generation. This may be once in a lifetime opportunity to catch up. And I'm hopeful that the United States will again be a leader when it comes to folks getting tools. So just thank you all so much as well. Thanks for this guy. Chip's a good guy. It's been fun getting to know him as well. I don't know why he departed so quickly on me. So we're gonna have to figure that out again, sir.
We'll see what we can do.